All right, bang on 7:30 this Monday morning. We are ready for you. Whatever you got for us this week, it is a very, very big week in the history of Gaelic football because either we're going to end up with exactly the same scenario that we've always had, or we're going to have a bright new dawn. You get to pay your money and you take your choice this week. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. If you want to get involved in that conversation, let's be having you this morning. You can get us in the YouTube channel. You can leave a comment there, or of course you can get us on Off the Ball AM. That's the Twitter handle. Or whatever way you want to get in touch with us this morning. Loads of different ways. By now, I suspect, if you're listening to us this morning, you know how to get involved and how the show works. We're going to bring you the performance rankings. We're going to talk about the weekend stories from the Premier League. We're going to find out just how aggrieved Connacht should be when it looked like they were going to go to Thomond Park and beat Munster. They're very, very close. This Connacht team are very, very close to being very, very good. At least that's my takeaway from it. Maybe the takeaway should be Munster aren't that good at the moment. So we'll see. Plenty to get our teeth stuck into, and Michael Reynolds, the CEO of Leinster GAA, is going to join us around about 9:10 to tell us why he's not in favour of Proposal B, which is going to be voted on this weekend. Overnight, we've had another win from Rory McIlroy. Just when the season's in the melting pot comes Rory. Oh no, hang on, sorry, that's being a bit disingenuous, isn't it? He's the sixth fastest to whatever number of 20.
The big 2-0 for McIlroy overnight. What wasn't exactly like the level of emotion when he won earlier in the year or anything like that. So he's not necessarily getting carried away with what this individual event is. But as you say, it's a 20th PGA Tour win for him. He won it in pretty impressive fashion.
A good field.
Like,
it's a really good field.
An outstanding field. There's no question about that.
He had 30 on the front nine on Saturday.
Yeah, and everybody just putting up incredible scores, not least Colin Morikawa, who came up with a late charge with a career best 62 yesterday. So there was a bit of bottle to lead from that position. I think he'd gone from maybe it was a Thursday to early on Sunday, or maybe even to the back nine on Sunday without a single bogey, and everybody just shot outrageous scores. So it was complete free-for-all. But when you're in a free-for-all in that sort of company, it does take incredible quality to win it. And he said afterwards that he just got back to being Rory again, that he's tried to be someone else recently. I'm not sure who that person was, but like it is. We all find Rory a very, very interesting guy, and when you watch any of his interviews, the sort of mentality that he tries to tap into at varying times borders on the inconsistent, and it is inconsistent. And I think that when you're in that sphere, it must be just extremely hard to try and figure out what is going wrong when you can't put in a performance like that every single week, and you're going to try everything under the sun, and it seems that he has done that. And this week the flavour of the month is being more Rory McIlroy, and it's worked, and I'm sure that he will abandon that at some point when things don't go so well. And who are we to judge him for that, because he's in a high wire act right now where he's one of the most talented golfers in the world, and he feels that his talents haven't delivered enough wins over the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, let Rory be Rory and let's see what happens. So I'm delighted for him. I'm delighted for everybody who's interested in golf that we're going to have a second, a third, fourth and fifth act of, we're probably act 5 at this stage of McIlroy's career for us to get involved in, because it did feel at the start of the year, like I remember sitting here and we were doing Virtual Insanity with John Duggan and saying there's a bang of Rory not being relevant at the moment. And then obviously he won early in the season. It was like, oh, okay, so he's going to be relevant. And then not particularly relevant in most of the majors. And then the Ryder Cup happened and the show of emotion happened. And I don't know, maybe that's a turning point for him. Maybe that, like, the warm embrace of failure surrounded by your teammates was important, and that final day was important. Maybe something happened. I don't know. Like, he is so streaky, and so the psychodrama is so melodramatic that you know that he's telling the truth when he's speaking in that moment. Now, his truth may change, like all human beings' truths change.
Yeah, and
that makes him pretty compelling. And so I'm going to be tuning in.
Absolutely. Like when you talk about fading into irrelevance, like, I mean, it wasn't the worst take in the world. Like, he's ranked 14th in the world at the moment. I think that there will always be a fascination around McIlroy. I don't think it's Irish glasses being...
No, like, he's by far one of them. Like, he's been the most interesting character. Like, if you think about the whole manufactured Brooks versus your man, like that, they're now going to play each other for money, right? So the oldest con trick in sport was, oh, let's have a beef and then we'll all make loads of money off the back of it. There's nothing manufactured about McIlroy. Like, it's not made up. It's all true. He's just being himself, and everybody's like, what's he doing now? What's he saying now?
And there are wild inconsistencies to it, but that's just
Yeah.
the nature of being a human being
In the public eye, who says everything he thinks.
Exactly.
Because we all change our mind about stuff. It's just that we don't always say, well, what do I think? Do I think now this? Have I got all the? I don't have all the information, but I'm still gonna, say.
Yeah. Like I'd love for him to do like an updated reading list again, because I know when he did that Paul Kimmage article a couple of years ago, it was quite telling to see what he had been reading at that time. Like he was The Secret wasn't one of them. I haven't read The Secret. Maybe The Secret is good. Why am I laughing off The Secret? Maybe The Secret is the greatest book of all time. But he was reading stuff about like essentialism and things like that, and it was like, okay, this guy clearly has a singular goal in mind, and it must involve a green jacket, and it hasn't happened. And I wonder, maybe has he like changed that principle somewhat over the last little while, or actually is the reading that he was doing in 2019 finally coming to fruition?
Or is it the other way? I don't know. It's hard. So look, but definitely.
A riddle wrapped in an enigma. The other way around. An enigma wrapped in a riddle, I think is the phrase.
It's 7:36. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 a.m. We've got our performance rankings. We're going to speak with Karen Duggan about the weekend's Premier League with sports pages at 8:30. We'll bring the sports teams from Colin Maloney at 8:40. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 8:50. Michael Reynolds, the CEO of Leinster GA, at 9:05. And we'll play it with Peter Schmeichel talking with John Duggan at 9:30. But now, at 7:36 this morning, it's time for the performance rankings.
That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Boom. Where do we go?
So we'll go through the good, the bad and the grand this Monday morning, reacting to the weekend's action. The bad, and it's kind of not a predictable bad, but it's a repetitive bad at this point, is Manchester United. It's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It's where we're going to start here. We're going to get to Big Mick in just a moment. We've got Newcastle in the grand, and then we've got Jack Carty and Mo Salah in the green this morning. With Manchester United, it feels that you try and avoid putting them into the bad on a morning like this, because it feels that they shouldn't be interesting at this point, but they haven't. They've not
They're
even
like
come
Rory
close.
McIlroy.
Well, exactly. They haven't even come close to the point of getting repetitively bad.
They find new ways to keep us entertained
by being mediocre. It's really interesting. You would have thought that they have found all the different ways to have dramatic failure, but it just hasn't happened yet. There is still enough new threads coming out of Saturday's defeat to Leicester City that makes them, other than maybe Newcastle United, the biggest story from the Premier League over the course of the weekend. And like, you would have thought that over the course of last season, when we would have spoken about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and questioned how long he has in the job, I thought we were all eating humble pie at the end of last season, and Solskjaer was on the way to finally writing everybody off that had written him off, and this idea of him being a work experience manager was finally put in the rearview mirror, and this year he was going to become a much more hardened soul who was going to take Manchester United to the next level. But the truth is, throughout the season, he's looked more like a work experience manager than at any point over the last couple of years, and it just feels that they aren't going anywhere fast at this point. Like, just the predictable nature, if you look at the team sheet, and yeah, this is hindsight playing a big part here, but when you look at the team sheet that they played against Leicester on Saturday, and you see Matic and Pogba in that midfield, if you're going to predict which is the area that Manchester United fans are going to be focusing on in the aftermath of the game, you're probably going to point to that midfield as the most likely scenario. Now, of course, Rafael Varane was missing as well, so that's a big part when he's your marquee signing throughout the course of the summer too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the questions around Harry Maguire need to be amplified somewhat as well. There was, I can't remember the account on Twitter, but that just focuses on him for the fourth goal, where he's like on the edge, kind of defending the back post where the goal eventually gets scored, and he's like going forward, going for slow, steady. Oh no, wait! Oh, the ball's in the back of the net, and it's like, you're the captain and centre back. Show some kind of sense of, I understand what's going to happen here. I know where the threat is. By the way, that fourth goal, the finish, where you've seen a million times, the ball kind of is like, it's one of those horrible misses that somebody has, but the skill and speed and the technical execution of it. Hang on, did Vardy score the fourth goal?
No, Daka scored.
Daka scored the fourth goal, yeah. Friday's finish, by the way, was the flukiest, unfluky finish you're ever also going to see. It's like a million times out of a million, that one cannons off and hits the corner flag. But because Jamie Vardy's done it so often, you're like, well, it's obviously not a fluke. He knows exactly what he's doing. But anybody else does that, and you're like, oh, that's a fluke.
Yeah, some serious goals actually when he throw Tielemans and Greenwood into the mix as well.
Greenwood's finish was unbelievable. Tielemans' finish I thought was class too. But Daka's the skill set for Daka to pull that ball down and walk it into the net, I think, is massively underrated, because you have actually seen maybe over the weekend got into one of those wormholes where it's like bad 80s football, bad international football. There was a goal that I think Coventry scored against Villa from 1980 something or other, and it was just horrific. And the amount of times that the ball gets shinned and cannoned, and we're watching the high watermark of good quality football, with the exception obviously of Harry Maguire's defending. So I think Maguire should be in this as well. Him back in the team, like they have enough money spent on that team at this stage. And the post match, Solskjaer looking confused, going, maybe we need to rebalance things. You can't be saying that at this stage. You're supposed to know what the balance of the team is. You're supposed to have a vision for how your team are supposed to perform, and it wasn't there. And like, I definitely have oscillated back and forth between, actually he's done quite a lot of good stuff. The beginning of a team is there. Success takes time, and one more player might be the thing that tips them into it. But actually, that's not true, is it? Like, if you look at it, it wasn't that Frank Lampard needed a bit more time. It was that Frank Lampard didn't have a clear vision in his head of what Chelsea were supposed to do. Tuchel came in and said, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. Everybody knows what their role is. And that stops the individual errors, because you're not subconsciously thinking, what am I supposed to be doing? That's where the individual errors come from. And it's got to that point with Manchester United where nobody quite knows what they're supposed to be doing. Even Pogba, right? Pogba should be able to play 6 because he plays 6 for France sometimes, and so everybody goes, well, he should be able to flit in and out. But if you're Pogba, one week you're being told you don't have to do that much defending, you can be the left side of that front three, kind of. When we're in possession you can do that, when we're out of possession they want you to play kind of a midfield 8 type play. And then next week it's like, no, you're a 6 now. It's like, well, what is he? We don't know what he is, because Solskjaer doesn't know what he is.
He's almost gone into utility midfielder mode for Manchester United.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting. Like, when you say that Solskjaer can't really figure out this Manchester United team, what makes that worse is that it feels like other managers have figured out what Manchester United are. And you look at Brendan Rodgers in the aftermath of the game. Rodgers has played Solskjaer 7 times now. He's won 4 games and he's drawn 1. Like, I thought that after the game he was going to go fully like his own namesake, Aaron Rodgers, and say, I still own you after the game. But that didn't necessarily happen. He instead illustrated how he plans to beat Manchester United, and he said that their central players weren't pressing, so we could be patient and work the ball through the pitch. And that was we get this sometimes with Leicester. We got it with James Maddison last year against Chelsea, remember?
Yeah.
When it was like, Lampard, wow, this guy's completely out of his depth. James Maddison has just completely debunked how he plays. And there's a little element of that about Brendan Rodgers and what he says there, that the lack of a press from central areas and attack from Manchester United just gave Leicester the keys to this game. Now, you can point fingers at Cristiano Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes, or you can point fingers at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for that. Maybe there's enough blame to go around, and the same thing goes for...
I actually... Like, if you see the effort that Ronaldo puts in, I think if he was told to press as part of an overall strategy, he'd do it. It's not that he can't do it. He could do it for 60 minutes, and the team might win these games 2-0, and the game... I don't think that Ronaldo can't do that. I don't think he doesn't have the energy or the fitness to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a whole pile of sense given the shape that he's in. Of course, you factor into that the age that he is at this point, and... Maybe, in fairness, I don't think it's overly reactionary to maybe have that concern about Ronaldo. Like, I think when he gets signed, people are saying that. And
yeah, fair enough, right? If you were building a team who was deciding to press, you wouldn't buy Cristiano Ronaldo. But that's not the situation they find themselves in. To say that they can't do it with him in the team, like, you've got a lot of energy around him. You had Sancho and Greenwood around him. Yeah. Like, there's enough energy there to be able to make things difficult. But they've obviously chosen not to make things difficult.
It seems that way, and like there's absolutely zero excuse on the front of Sancho and Greenwood. Now, in fairness, he does say it was in central positions rather than out wide, so it's not necessarily a statement of them. Although Sancho again just had a poor day at the office, and it's just struggling to justify that price tag.
But don't worry, it's going to get very easy for Manchester United. The fixture list is really handy for them over the next while. It's Atalanta at home on Wednesday. It's Liverpool at home on Sunday. It's Spurs away the following Saturday, and it's Atalanta at home, and then it's Man City between now and the 6th of November. So there are 5 big games where every single game is going to be a cup final of sorts, and the referendum on Solskjaer is back.
They'll beat Manchester City, is the thing. Or they'll win a couple of those games, and
they should beat Atalanta at home.
What will happen is that Atalanta are obviously so good, and they're like, this is the exact sort of team that's going to challenge Manchester United now, and will definitely, expect to beat them, expect to actually beat Manchester United. And then what happens, and it's been a theme during the Solskjaer era, is that United actually beat them. Like, if this was Club Brugge or someone, I would be more concerned almost. I think that Manchester United are going to win a few of those games, and things might seem okay again in a couple of weeks. I'm not convinced that this is the beginning of the end, and we'll be in this. Maybe we will never stop talking about this. Maybe Solskjaer will be manager for life, and United will just consistently finish 4th, and everybody will just be happy.
They gave him a new deal. I presume there's some kind of break clause in the deal that says if we fall, blah blah blah. But I don't know. Let's wait and see. But if you're a Man United fan, how are you feeling this morning? I see all the Liverpool fans saying, Solskjaer's doing a great job. He just needs a little bit more time. He's nearly there. He's really rounding into one of the great tactical geniuses of our time. What would happen if that squad had a brilliant manager? It's a pretty good squad.
Well, I think, was Gary Neville asked about this the other day, about what would happen if Antonio Conte went in, and he was like, no, Conte can't go in there. He's not the type of manager that would work at the football club. But it'd be really interesting to see what would happen if he were to go in, and what sort of changes he would make, even just formation-wise, because it is Groundhog Day when we talk about the weakness in this Manchester United team, and how it comes down to those 2 at the base of your midfield. Does Conte just abandon that immediately, or is it different personnel in there, or is it better protection? Does he go with the wing backs? I don't know. It'll just be very, very interesting to see. It'll be a very interesting case study to see what would be the first thing that a manager more seasoned than Solskjaer would do. The title race is over at this point. There could be the element of a free hit between Christmas and the end of the season. I'd be surprised if Solskjaer is gone before Christmas. I think things would need to get quite bad for him to go. The other thing that's at play here is that we're seeing reports in the papers this morning that there could be more fan protests before the game on Sunday, and we all know what happened the last time Manchester United fans protested before United against Liverpool. It was the storming of Old Trafford. That's not going to happen this weekend, but the protest this weekend will certainly draw a few headlines, and Manchester United will be back in the sort of fans versus the owners sort of place once again.
There is a possibility that they do move this time. Before the international break, everyone was like, look at the league position. It's really good compared to where it was last year. We started really slow last year, and then everything started to click into gear after the international break. Well, the trouble this time is that hasn't happened. After the international break, he's been outthought and outfought by another manager who, might be available at the end of the season if the right offer was to come his way. So I think maybe we're getting to the point where the club will decide that signing Solskjaer gave them a degree of certainty. The stock market would have liked it because it meant that there is forward planning, and we know what our future is. But actually, at this point, you wouldn't be terribly surprised. Spurs, who were in crisis, have won their last 2 games and are now ahead of them in the Premier League table. And that game against Spurs in the league is going to be pretty interesting now all of a sudden, because Harry Kane's back.
Yeah, Spurs showing what you can do if you've got a collection of good players in certain positions, and Manchester United have that and can match that, and are probably better than that across the pitch. So yeah, Spurs to finish ahead of United, or to be ahead of United for a long part of the season, is surely not going to go down well with Manchester United fans. And we also need to remember as well that they came up against the Leicester City team at the weekend, who had started the season terribly. Now, I don't think that anybody thought that this was the new base level for Leicester City. I think everybody expected there to be a kick, and as you say, Daka's finish was class. He looks like an excellent signing, and he'll come into things. Iheanacho looking like he's back to the end of last season's form a little bit. Himself and Vardy have that understanding back, and they look like where they were when they were challenging for the Champions League places over the past couple of years. So it is, in fairness, a tough fixture, and maybe beforehand it was underestimated a little bit. But at the same time, it's a sort of fixture that United absolutely need to be getting something from if they want to contend. And I think the contention conversation is almost over at this point, even though they're only 5 points off the top.
Yeah. Okay, what's next?
We'll just mention Mick McCarthy next. Obviously, the derby over the course of the weekend, Cardiff City against Swansea. Comfortable win for Swansea, and he's in trouble as Cardiff boss, basically, Mick McCarthy. There was a couple of really interesting threads to it. The one that stuck out to me was the chief executive of Cardiff, Ken Chu, who joined supporters on the bus down the M4 to Swansea, and there were a couple of social media posts in the aftermath of the game. So this is before the derby, not even after getting smashed by your rivals, beforehand. He's on the supporters bus. Somebody shouts, "Get a new manager," and he replies, "I wish we had a new manager." And then he walks to the back of the bus asking for new manager applications. And then Mick McCarthy obviously is asked about it afterwards, and he says, "I don't have a reaction to it."
Is there a video of this?
Yeah, there is. Oh, sorry, there's not. There's not a video of this. There is a photo of this. So he was definitely on the bus.
Okay.
And but Chew did come out and said that the comment was made in jest. So he didn't come out to deny the comment. He said that it was just a joke, just having a laugh. And McCarthy said, "I can't imagine Ken Chew would say that actually to people. And if he did, I think it would be said to me and nobody else. So no, I wouldn't react to that."
Look,
yeah.
Everybody who's a long-term watcher of any of the stuff that we've done knows that I'm not Big Mick's biggest fan, but that's the type of behaviour from your chief executive that's bollocks. Like, that's absolute bullshit. You can't be doing that. You can't even be pretending to do that, because it means that you're not united, and it sleeps into the players. And I think whenever Mick gets fired, he's got a really strong case for getting every single penny on his contract paid up because of that incident, and he deserves it. But it's probably sooner rather than later now, isn't it?
Yeah, like absolutely. Like, they've lost, was it 5 games in a row at this point? 3-0 was the full-time scoreline at the weekend. They've got Fulham on Wednesday at Craven Cottage, and then they've got Middlesbrough and Stoke. So
Fulham riding high. Mitrovic 12 goals in 12 games.
There you go. Yeah, they're bringing Serbian form into proceedings. So they're in 3rd place at the moment in the Championship. Cardiff in 20th. So
Not in the relegation zone just yet, though.
Not just yet, but the current form. They've got the worst form of the Championship. It's not going well for him, and I think it'll be a huge surprise to see him still in charge in a couple of weeks.
In the vein of the is that actually funny? Swansea and their team and their manager did a celebration. So the guy who scored the first goal and made the other 2, whose name I have just actually lost. Anyway, Russell Martin is their manager, right? Left MK Dons to become the Swansea manager in August, and at full time he's pictured doing a swimming celebration. I didn't know anything about this swimming celebration until I started to read about it this morning, but apparently back in the 80s there was a pitched battle between the Swansea and Cardiff fans, and the only way that the Cardiff City fans could escape was to jump in the water and swim away. And so as a result, when anything happens in this game since, the Swansea fans do this swimming celebration to, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha. Our thugs terrorised your thugs so badly that your thugs could only escape by swimming. And now, occasionally they celebrate on the pitch when they score against Cardiff. They do the swimming celebration as like a, Battle of the Boyne, march our traditional route, fly our flags and banners. That's what it signifies. I mean, maybe it's hilarious. I don't know. Feels like it's kind of a celebration of the worst parts of football culture, maybe? Maybe I'm just being a woke dickhead. I don't know. You can tell me this morning.
I'm sure we'll get plenty of blowback to that. We'll bring more wholesome news of football to everyone this morning, because we move on to the grand in our performance rankings, and we move to Newcastle United, the club. Yesterday was definitely one of the most bizarre television spectacles we've seen in football. We've seen this sort of thing before, where owners are glorified and takeovers are celebrated, but yesterday just felt on a whole other level above it. It felt that Sky Sports were really part of the celebration, or really part of creating what they felt should have been a celebration. Just the cameras high in the stands with Amanda Stavely and the new owners, the constant shots, almost like a goggle box throughout the match when everything good or bad happened, which actually turned out to be quite entertaining, and I'm really glad they kept on doing that when Spurs kept on scoring. And this strange situation where it feels now that Steve Bruce has completely ruined everybody's lives in Newcastle, where it's like, oh God, we thought we were supposed to be absolutely amazing straight away. Screw you, Steve Bruce. How dare you come here and ruin our party? And he's unfortunately hanging around like a bad smell in their perspective at the moment. And
I'd say Steve Bruce had like a reasonable chance of making it till Christmas / the end of the season. If he'd won yesterday, they would have been able to ride the emotion. He would have been able to put some plans in place. But when you're getting booed on your first day and you've managed to let the air out of the party balloons, someone's got to be blamed. and it ain't going to be the new owners. So already they're talking Stevie G. Roberto Martinez is an interesting name that might be tempted to go. Now, I think Belgium believe they have a chance of winning the World Cup, and that's only 18 months away. And he spent his 4.5 years building that up. So do you give it all up for this gig now? Probably safe in the knowledge that that gig is going to come around again. So what do you do if you're Martinez?
No, you stay with Belgium. You try and win the World Cup and see if you can actually get that. I know they had a really good outing at the World Cup last time, and maybe a little bit disappointing at this year's Euros. I think you stay because there definitely is a sense, not that anybody needed a reminder of it yesterday, but a sense that this thing is going to take a considerable amount of time, that this is a very, very low base that Newcastle United are coming from. There is no guarantee that they're still going to be in the division at the start of next year. There is a good chance to get relegated unless they get a very, very good manager. And it's just going to take a long time for this team to be any good. That's the big issue with yesterday, is the lack of quality that they have. The real sense in from Newcastle United supporters, though, is that Steve Bruce has dragged them down, that they've spent plenty of money. The likes of Joe Linton and Joe Willock and a number of other players have been signed for €20 million plus, considerably more in many cases, and that he inherited a mid-table side and has brought them down to relegation fodder. That could be true, and in fairness, I mean, Newcastle fans seem pretty unanimous in their dislike for Steve Bruce, but I think that there's been kind of maybe a bit of a rising tide around them as well. Teams with better managers, better structures, and Newcastle United have been a bit of a basket case. So, I don't think that they're going to be this sort of job that is going to get away from the realm of Roberto Martinez in the space of 2 years. I think that in 2 years' time, he'll still be a manager capable of getting that job. This thing is going to take a while. And
if you're Stevie G, do you take it? It's free hits.
It's a very tricky one, isn't it? Because I think it just comes with this massive risk that if you get relegated, and even if you're the manager for only 6 months, there's no guarantee that they are going to stick with you next season, is there?
If you get relegated, out you go.
Yeah.
No.
This isn't seen as a project where it's like, okay, you can sustain a bit of a dip here, and then you can take us back with a transfer kitty next summer. I think there's no chance that they're trusting a manager with that transfer kitty if that manager ends up getting relegated with them this season.
The Irish Times with that picture of one of those trucks with a picture on it, and Jamal Khashoggi's picture is on the truck outside St James's Park yesterday. It'll be interesting to see how long that persists and that continues. You hope that it's going to persist and continue for a long time. Jonathan Liu's piece, which is obviously syndicated in The Guardian, finishes with the line, "Meanwhile, Jamal Khashoggi is still dead." This is one of the most bizarre stories in world sport that I can really remember. A nation state has bought a team and is using it. I mean, it's probably not that bizarre. We've actually already seen it with multiple other nation states from the same part of the world. But has something changed? Are we always going to talk about this, or will the sports washing work? How long will it take for the sports washing to work, where the pictures of Jamal Khashoggi disappear from the front of the papers? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 3 months? Is it 3 years? Because it seems as if the money is going to be washing through that club, and we're going to be talking about who the manager is, because it's interesting. It is an interesting thing, and it's the same with every other aspect of sports washing. All right, so that's there in the amber this week.
Yeah, the good, we've gone for two players in the good this week. We might start with Jack Carty. Got man of the match on Saturday night against Munster despite being on the losing team. He will feel unbelievably aggrieved to have been on the losing team. Gets that brilliant block down on Joey Carberry late in the game, which should have been the winning try, and he holds the ball up on his own try line about 15-20 minutes before that. All round just an outstanding performance from him and a really good start to the season. Not that is overly surprising or anything, because he was excellent last season as well, and we were questioning on this show quite a bit over the course of the Pro 14 last year as to why Carty maybe wasn't getting a look in the national setup. I think after the weekend and after the start of the season that he's had, he has to be in that squad when Andy Farrell names it this week. He has to be in contention to be out half number 2 and to get meaningful game time as well. And sure, he's a very different out half to Johnny Sexton, but I really think that he's been unduly punished, and maybe punished is the wrong word, but he suffered quite a bit as a result of not having a perfect 2019 Rugby World Cup, to say the least. He hasn't been allowed to show that he can come back from errors like that. And maybe Ireland want a different type of out half. Maybe they want somebody who is a little more akin to Johnny Sexton as their backup out half, and maybe Jack Carty doesn't fit like that. But I really think his form is unignorable at this point. And when you look at the concerns maybe around Joey Carbery in the short term, I think Jack Carty has to be in consideration and absolutely has to be out half number 2.
Do you think he will be though?
I think
what's realistically going to happen here?
Be interesting to see where the Billy Burns love ticker is at.
Would it be a massive jolt for everybody if he was suddenly to get back into the squad going, right, you can't play your way back into the squad. You play like that, we'll put you back in.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, of course it does. Like, I do think the expectation is that he will get in. Like, you look at some of the injuries that have fallen on a couple of other players, and the fact that it's kind of unignorable at this point as well. Like, it was interesting, which is the himself and Carbery being on opposite teams on Saturday night definitely will have given Farrell a bit of pause for thought, because Carbery obviously just needs a little bit longer to get back up to his level. Now, in fairness, it took Bottle to nail that late penalty, because if you get blocked down like that, you're possibly in the horrors for a couple of moments. You're like, oh crap, I've cost my team the game here. And to actually have the nerve to win the game for your team in the end shows that the mentality is absolutely there. So that'll come over the next little while. But it's not a million miles away now, these November internationals.
No, well, when you think about it as well, the case for Ben Healy was the kicking game is absolutely sensational. Now, in fairness, it was a kick that got blocked down that nearly gave Connacht the victory. But to be able to nail that penalty in those ice cold, in your veins moment where you need it, yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? You got to. Can you bring everybody in for these squads? Should you actually just break your own rules and start having massive training squads?
Like, I think that's worthwhile at some point. I think that when it comes to these November internationals, these are games that Andy Farrell, I suspect, will be targeting to win. I think maybe when you bring in the whole host of out halves, you do it around the summertime maybe. Like, what was the camp that Harry Byrne first gets introduced? Maybe that actually was before the Six Nations or earlier this year, or maybe it was November last year. But like, it has been done in the past where a younger out half who isn't going to get any game time gets introduced to the camp, gets introduced to how things work. And that's really important for someone in that position. Like, if we talk about where Ireland's priorities lie over the next little while, I think that there can't be any scenario where you think that giving Carty a significant run over November wouldn't be a good thing, because we're going to need another out half at some point.
We need about 5 or 6 out halves, given the amount of punishment that the 10 takes, particularly if they play the game that Ireland want to play. So we've got to get them all a bit of game time, right?
Like, in hindsight, it would have made a lot of sense to see a lot of Jack Carty sooner in 2021, and it would have been great to see how he did against a couple of opposition in the Six Nations, but that obviously just didn't happen, and now is the time, and maybe the Ross Byrne, Billy Burns axis is something that Andy Farrell saw as the two main challengers to Sexton in the short term, but I think that view just has to have shifted a little bit after the season that we've seen so far. Like, Connacht overall, I think the real sense from the weekend is that they're pissed off, to be honest. Sandy Friend says that URC needs to take action after inexcusable TMO error. So the real sense is that after the weekend, Connacht should have been coming away with a win because Tadhg Beirne was offside.
Yeah. Look, we'll talk a bit more about that with Alan Quinlan later on in the show. And so if you're just watching this on YouTube back a little bit later on and you want to get all of our rugby stuff, then hit subscribe and you'll be able to see that a little bit later on. Or, of course, you can subscribe to the OTB rugby feed wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so he's in the green.
Yeah, and Mo Salah. I mean, it's just incredible what he's doing this season. He's gone to another level once again from an incredibly high base, and there is nowhere kind of left to go with Mo Salah in conversation. So naturally, the conversation has put him in the best player in the world category, and it doesn't feel like hyperbole at this point, such as his form so far this season. He's been absolutely incredible. His goal against Watford at the weekend, it was actually very similar to Manchester City in terms of how things went for him personally. One incredible assist and one incredible goal. Hard to pick between Manchester City and Watford. I think Watford had a bit more of the Renaissance painting about it. The last defender who goes in is just helplessly on the ground, his face. Like, Salah kind of looking like Allen Iverson going out into court with the explicit intention to break your ankles, except he's got this insane finishing power that is right up there with Messi when he finds that yard of space in the box. it's very, very hard to kind of pin him down as to what exactly he is, because he can do it all when he's got the ball at his feet, and he's just an extraordinary player. It feels almost now as if that the historical comparisons between himself and other Liverpool greats, it's getting to the point now where Salah is getting into the conversation as one of the greatest Liverpool players of all time, one of the greatest Liverpool attackers of all time, at the very least, because I know obviously they've had iconic defenders in the past, and like he could do something this season where he becomes their greatest attacker of all time if he keeps this up, and if Liverpool have a Premier League / Champions League, one or the other title to show for it, and Salah is the guy who wins it for them. I just think he's absolutely incredible, and maybe there's a bit of recency bias speaking there, and I know a lot of Liverpool fans will cling to their history and the players that they've had in the past, but football has gone to a whole new level over the last little while. The Premier League has done, and Mo Salah is right up there as the best player in the league at the moment, so I think he's in a different stratosphere to a lot of what that club has seen.
So are you saying he's better than Fowler, he's better than Fernando Torres, he's better than Luis Suarez?
Yeah.
Better than all those?
I think so.
Okay, so then...
I think I can speak more about Torres and Suarez. What about, like, you can answer the Fowler one more accurately than I can. And let's leave aside the sort of parochial love for Robbie Fowler in terms of actual danger as an attacker.
It's hard to know. I think that Robbie Fowler didn't play in a team that was as good as this team. Like, and also it's very difficult to judge, but I think that in terms of achievements, he's still behind Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah.
So
in terms of achievements, absolutely.
That's the bit that has to happen next, I think. Now, I didn't see any of the Keegan era Liverpool. I have no clue what any of that stuff was like, but I caught the very end of the last season of Kenny Dalglish kind of watching football in any meaningful way as well. So, but they all say Kenny is the king, and that's not they didn't hand that out. Fowler was God. So where does Salah fit in that holy trinity?
Yeah, sometimes you don't need to be a god to just be better. Like, it's sometimes it feels that people are doing a disrespect to Mo Salah by saying that he won't have as firm a place in the hearts of Liverpool fans as Robbie Fowler. But it's not really. I think that's just more credit to what Robbie Fowler means to Liverpool fans.
Yeah, and look, Fowler obviously left and got away with leaving because of who he was, and he also came back. But if Salah needs to finish his career out with them before, I think you can put him on their Mount Rushmore alongside. I mean, he might already be there. He might already be there. Is he? He probably is, because he's part of a team that ends the famine. So those teams always have a special place in people's hearts. Like, we had Brian McClare sitting where you're sitting on Friday, and there was a crazy outpouring of love from Manchester United fans of a certain age. Men in their 40s were getting weepy looking at Brian McClare and listening to his voice and listening to him talk about what it was like to be in that dressing room. So I think all of this stuff, I think what Salah has done back-to-back games is unbelievable. Like, it's like, I scored this amazing goal from this position in the pitch. There was a couple of times where he got the ball in the same position against Watford at the weekend and completely screwed it up, like kind of just overran it or ran it straight into a defender, and you're like, and then he scores the goal. And you're like, he was trying that the whole time. He was like, there's an element here of I'm finding the space, I'm seeing who's going to come, and I know what I can do. I think the City goal is better because of the fact that the quality of opposition.
Yeah. But
this one actually, there's more players in the tighter area, and there's the bit where he stands on the ball and stops it.
Yeah.
Which didn't actually happen in the City goal.
No.
It's perpetually moving. I mean, there's a drag back. I don't know. This one might actually look better. The other one is kind of higher quality, but this one might look better.
Yeah, possibly. It's maybe a little bit more aesthetically pleasing in slow motion, this one, whereas Manchester City one was obviously just a higher stakes goal. And like, I just think whatever happens this season, I mean, he's if he keeps this up, it's going to be an all-time great season. And my point here is that the conversations that have gone beyond hyperbole are not unwarranted.
So next season, would you prefer to have him in your team or Mbappe? Because Mbappe's form has come back since the criticism that he suffered at international level.
Well, for Liverpool, you would rather keep the status quo and have Mo Salah in your team rather than losing Mo Salah and paying money to get Kylian Mbappe next season. Now, in the long term, you would...
So next season, to try and win, if your job is on the line, right, which it will be for whoever managers at Real Madrid, who do you want in your team?
I would probably lean towards Mo Salah right now. Now, in fairness, it comes with all these different variables where you're moving to a different league. Now, Kylian Mbappe will be as
okay.
well. They will both be absolutely fine. Which of those two skill sets is it? The sort of wriggling your way through crowded boxes, which Mo Salah is so good at, which is just an unbelievable string to have in your bow in the Premier League, versus Kylian Mbappe, who will soar through open space and kill you with outrageous pace, which in fairness Salah does have as well. Maybe that's more. Maybe that favours La Liga a little bit more. Like if it's Liverpool, if it's one or the other, and if it's any team in the Premier League, you're picking Salah next season hands down. Of course, it's the legacy of Mbappe, keeping him for the next 7-8 years at what will be a very, very high level, and Salah's peak is obviously going to end much quicker than Kylian Mbappe's at this point. But even next season, you're like, it's a hair's breadth between them, and I'm picking Salah.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. 10 minutes past 8. That is this week's performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
Very busy show still to come between now and 10 o'clock. We're going to bring you some Peter Schmeichel goodness. We're going to talk about Football Congress. We've got Alan Quinlan talking rugby. Talking football next with Karen Duggan, though.